1, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 1.
Zo.
Echt, voor de let. Niet, hè?
1, 2, 3. Oké. 3, 2, 1.
Well, the original theme for the year before we got to reimagining sustainable cities was after COVID-19, reimagining something. So that you can think about a lot of different things where our understanding of particular social issues we have to rethink some things. We know more now, and yet maybe we also know less.
It's actually funny because I was part of the original team that chose this topic. I actually came up with the topic because I was just searching some topics, and then I was like, of course this pandemic has really halted the globalization process we're in currently. And I was really thinking, how can we shift this to become more sustainable? Because sustainability is the future, of course. So I was like, it's super interesting to look how this pandemic has stopped the globalization process and how we can shift it into a new direction of sustainable development.
Why this focus on cities? Most of the population in the world live in cities. It's now more than half the population of the world living in cities, and by 2050, 68% of people will be living in cities. So these cities have a huge impact on the environment. What are the challenges we face in cities? First of all, you have different perspectives, and now we have chosen 3 of them, which is an economic perspective, which is a perspective from society, and which is a perspective from the environment.
So we are facing a lot of big challenges, challenges regarding sustainability, regarding green energy, so massive transition in energy, and also a topic which is a lot in the news nowadays is about the number of homes that we need to produce over the next 10 to 15 years. All these topics together we can combine in future developments, and we need future policymakers to come up with great ideas and also to support the next big steps we all have to take.
One of the things that COVID-19 taught us is how difficult it is to deal with a sudden crisis. And compared to COVID-19, climate change is a long-term crisis, and therefore we have the luxury that we already know how to cope with it, and we know how to deal with the consequences and how to minimize those consequences. So that's also my message to future policymakers, to enjoy that luxury and also to prepare ourselves for climate change before it's too late to cope with it. In my workshop, I would like to talk with you, discuss and brainstorm with you how we can prepare our cities for climate change and how we can have more green that is also making more climate adaptive and resilient to climate change.
So in the conference we're all talking about sustainable cities, and we're talking about different angles of how to achieve this, and we're doing that a lot in dialogue. So I think in the coming years there will be many transformations for sustainability in terms of greening the cities, in terms of cooling the cities, also with transportation and housing and shopping and playing and leisure. So there's a lot of things happening in the cities. the cities is a lot about, of course, people and people living in cities and people working in cities, shopping and playing and having fun in cities. So the social elements of cities, I think it's really on the foreground in transforming cities. And if you consider the people's perspective, how people live and do their things in cities, then you can make future cities that are both enjoyable and sustainable.
About reimagining. Reimagining sustainable cities is, in my opinion, reimagining globalization. Maybe it's more about going global or cosmolocalism. The interconnectivity of the global and the hyper-local, rooted in specific places with its own material circumstances, its history, its traditions, situated, but also, if that's possible, being rooted in international global networks. And if we look at sustainability, we see this very clear.
Because of COVID-19, it had its own unique challenges, such as that all of the team meetings were, as you said, done on Teams, and this definitely brought in an element in which people don't see each other, so there's less of a personal connection between you and the other members of the conference. And I think this was a element that did make it more difficult to execute a conference, but it was a challenge that we were able to overcome, since the conference itself, in my opinion, was a very good and great success.
Having to organize the conference with the COVID-19 implications was really strange for some bit. Like I can remember, I haven't spent that much time on online calls ever. Like hours, tens of hours, hundreds of hours maybe, even in total. Just on the screen, talking with your peers, your fellow managers, and that was just, I think after just 2 months, it was the first time I saw someone from the conference in real life, and that was just so strange. It was really different than you expect. And
The registration goal was 200 participants, and as I remember, the day before was about 170, and as I remember, on the morning of conference is about 190, and as I remember, when the conference started at 1 p.m., we weren't at 200 yet, and then 15 or 20 minutes later, you came in the room, in the studio where we all were, or a few of us were, and you said, "There's 245 people," and it looked like you were so happy you might cry. I almost cried. I was happy for you. It put a lot of energy in the room. I won't forget it. It was one of the best parts of my year.
I was at Beeld en Geluid at the studio, and well, the vibe was just great there. And the minute that we started, we noticed that so many people were there, and after that it was just like amazing. It's like, oh, and Glen was like amazing, and the reactions we were all getting, and we seeing all these people from all around the world. And yeah, after that it was just great, and I didn't really have any worries anymore.
I got the position as host for the conference via a team member that just approached me and asked me if I wanted to do it. And I had a bit of experience already hosting stuff and standing in front of a crowd. So I thought, why not? My experience as a host was surprisingly pleasant. I was not nervous at all until I stood behind the cameras and the bright lights turned on, and I saw like all the 5 monitors and all the 4 cameras in front of me. Then I was a bit nervous, but I don't know, I felt very secure. Like you guys, the team provided a lot of good support, and that kind of made me feel at ease. And I also felt a lot of pressure since I was, other than the guest speakers, I was the only one kind of like on camera, and I represented the entire team. And I felt like it was kind of a make or break moment, and if I messed it up, then it would reflect poorly on all the, not just the team of students, but also the lecturers, the sponsors, and everyone involved. So I really wanted to do a good job.
to work with people that were motivated and were willing to put in the work and hours for a project. So that was, it was amazing. I'm really proud of the team.
The main thing that I took with me from the conference track is the idea that if everybody puts in enough time, so that you can make something special or make a success out of it.
Being involved in the hosting and setting up the conference, you dive into the topic. Like, I had to educate myself a bit as well on not just the speakers but what they do, and that taught me a bit more already. I didn't realize that certain fields exist and that sustainability is ever-reaching, kind of. It's like everywhere. Because I personally, my relationship with sustainability stems from being from an island, and I'm very aware of how climate change affects certain regions and certain vulnerable locations and populations, my island being one of them. So it was very reassuring to see how many people were committing to a more sustainable lifestyle.
Thank you all for attending the conference. You also were, of course, a big part of the success of conference, and I just want to thank you all for participating, for your reactions on the conference. Everyone who also participated internationally, thank you so much, and you really made this all worth it for us. So thank you.
Glad you were there. Really appreciate that you gave the students an opportunity to engage you, share with you, present you something that was interesting and valuable. Really appreciated that people gave us nice feedback. And I trust that the topic's going to come back in different ways for all of us.
Well, I want to thank everyone who attended the conference. Because of them, it was such a great success, because of their participation and their attendance. So the management and other organizers were able to see how their work paid off, and that the conference itself was a great success.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being there during the conference there. Everyone contributed a lot of knowledge and fun in the conference, so yeah, thank you so much.